This video is a little different. Instead of a regular video, this is going to be about an event I did in my Discord server with World War II borders. I'm currently preparing for another event where you can make your own country. Just join the Discord and go to #events and read the requirements to participate. Anyway, as you can see, I'm Uruguay. I wasn't going to participate. I literally gave myself 10 trillion cash and started messing about. I also gave myself San Marino and Macau, then made some OP bombers so I can spy and spectate on wars. It took a while to start, because there were some important players missing, namely Germany, the Soviet Union and USA. Bulgaria took Germany and I found someone to take USSR, but the event had to start without USA. For a while, people didn't do much. France made a faction and Yugoslavia and Romania made an alliance. Factories were built and armies were made, especially in France and Germany. An enormous buildup of troops was piling up, and I knew I had to keep watch there. This shot says a lot about the current situation in Europe. Let's quickly analyze. Here we can see France. They have a great economy and a large industry with tons of factories. From all that, they can afford to build a huge army. Right on top we can see UK, who although don't have much going, they are an island and focusing on a good navy is enough to repel a German naval landing. Small but significant is Luxembourg. They have a good amount of factories considering their tiny size. Those three are in France's faction. The enemy is Germany. They have much less than France, but they will eventually build up. Their ally is Italy. They have a small army you can't see. They will first expand their empire before dealing with France. Their industry isn't so bad either. There's the two Balkan buddies, Yugoslavia and Romania. Romania has a large army, and a decent industry. They're taking Hungary. Yugoslavia is still building up. These two are close to France. The other European power is the USSR, who didn't do much, they just expanded, and didn't side with anyone. Japan on the other side of the world was doing good too, similar to France. They were on Germany's side. Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact 2 going on here. As you can see, the troops are really piling up. I can see 1,600 French tanks, 200 French artillery, 70,000 French troops and loads more stuff on Paris. On the other side there's 2,400 German panzers. I would like to note that some countries had custom buffs. UK had naval buffs and USA had research buffs. France had infantry buffs and Germany had tank buffs. Therefore, Germany is going to be relying on tanks while France will be using infantry more often than other countries. Also, Germany started the Anschluss. Here's a clear shot of the empire Italy made, Mare Nostrum I guess. Also Poland was gone and the Balkan buddies had a breakup after Yugoslavia joined the Democratic Syndicate. Japan had took China and was now number 1. Also, USA had joined by now. USSR and Germany split Poland, like in real life. Romania also took Czechoslovakia, so no Sudetenland for Germany. Luxembourg took Belgium and the Netherlands with help from Japan and UK to take their colonies. Then there were a few minutes of nothing really. Just people expecting the inevitable war between Germany and France. It was really laggy, I had to zoom out a lot to offload the troops in Europe to get 30 frames back. I also built some more submarines. I would have 131 submarines by the end. Finally, in 1941, the big war started, surprisingly by a war between Japan and France initially, but Germany followed soon. So it was officially on. UK and her puppets, France, Benelux, Yugoslavia and Romania on the Allies' side, and Germany, Italy and Japan on the Axis. Most of these players had large empires, so they had to watch for their colonies too. France was fighting Japan and Italy in Vietnam and Libya and UK was fighting Italy and Ethiopia too. India was a player, and a puppet of UK, so they could cover the Indian subcontinent and the Burma Road for them. Here's a time-lapse I just spent a while spectating. Then I actually got kinda bored. As you can see, nothing much happened in Europe, just some minor gains, like Germany taking Budapest. Nothing happened in Asia either. Japan took a few unimportant French cities in North Vietnam. And in Africa, the troops weren't even fighting, or from the bit of Africa I can see here anyway. So I just kept making more submarines. Finally something exciting was happening. Japan took British Malaya, and Romania did a small push through Austria. Germany also took some land in France, breaking the stalemate and securing a small strip of land from which troops could pass to encircle. Perhaps, most excitingly was that a load of Japanese tanks landed in San Francisco in the USA, who had entered the war on the Allies' side but didn't do much yet. They built a load of airports to make an enormous air force, typical USA. I immediately sent a bomber to see exactly how much tanks Japan sent, but from the time they took to take San Francisco, I knew it wasn't enough to knock out USA without backup. Sure enough, they only sent 1,200 tanks, nowhere near enough to deal serious damage to USA. Most of them even died, so they ended up with only 200 tanks. You can also see the amount of bombers USA had. I also took a look at the losses. The Axis had 1.6 million losses while the Allies had 2 million. I had left Europe looking like this and I left to, you guessed it, build more submarines. All of a sudden, I came back to find that Paris had fallen. Although it's similar to the real thing, France put up much more of a fight. USA didn't put much troops in Europe, but it was using its insane aerial firepower to good use. Germany's cities were getting flattened. Problem is that at this point, France wasn't going to recover unless they got some actual ground troops on their soil to retake mainland France. Also, Italy took all of Yugoslavia, which is much better than what they did in real life. Although mainland France was gone, they were still fighting, which is good, because more content for me. But also more editing for me. Also, Romania was getting pounded. Benelux was gone too, although they were really good considering they started from Luxembourg. UK has a good navy compared to Germany, so they are able at preventing a naval invasion. USA was far away from the main fighting but had been sending tons of bombers every so often to keep the Axis kinda weak. Japan has a decent air force, and have been bombing New York, USA's new capital. By the time I said all of this, Romania was gone. Surprisingly, USSR stayed neutral through all of this. Not good, because less content. But also less editing for me. Anyway, in Southeast Asia, Japan had made minor gains against India and took North Vietnam from France. As you can see, USA's bombers, which my spies told me amount to 700, are dealing some serious damage. UK made a small naval invasion and took some of Luxembourg's land back, but it was swiftly dealt with. This picture here explains the entire Pacific theater. A big amount of Japanese bombers on their way to USA, and a big amount of anti-aircraft guns on standby to make sure USA doesn't do the same. There's a similar look over in USA. Somehow, I didn't realize that France took Shanghai, and realized a few minutes later. Although Shanghai is a big city, its loss isn't going to cripple Japan, and it won't save France either at this point. In fact, Vietnam declared independence, bringing an end to France's grip in Southeast Asia. And soon enough. And that's it. War in Europe is over. Fighting will continue for a while, but the main players started drafting peace terms. Just like the real thing, all that's left is the Pacific theater. And just like the real thing, Japan lost because the sheer amount of bombing has ruined them. This is probably the best image of USA's Air Force. Technically they gave up after India pulled off a naval invasion and took Tokyo, which is quite impressive, but USA's bombers made it so that Japan can't even make any new troops to take their capital back. Time for some statistics. Europe cost 7 million casualties for Germany and Italy and 5 million for the Allies, not to mention the amount of money and damage to cities. 2 million Japanese soldiers lost their life and 4 million Allied soldiers died in Asia. That brings the total military casualties to 9 million on both sides. making 18 million in total. Eerily similar to World War II, where an estimated 20 million soldiers died. The final treaty made these borders in Europe better than the real one in my opinion. With that, I conclude this event in this video. It took really long preparing and editing this video, but I think it came out great. For more European action, click on this video. It's how I formed EU as Belgium. Don't forget to join the Discord too.